Hey guys, good morning or good afternoon, whether you're joining me from the present or the future. Welcome back to another one of my FutureFight Vanguard series. Today is Friday, so happy Friday to all of you looking forward to the weekend. And I believe that there is some kind of Bushiroad event this weekend. I might be wrong, but if there is, for those of you that are entering that, good luck. And we are here today to talk about the Kagero GB8 deck. So, just like Genesis, it took like a little longer to make the Kagero GB8 deck because Overlord is straight up garbage now, in my opinion. It's just so hard to win with Overlord now because it needs more support to not be in the dirt compared to Blademaster. So basically we had to dig into GB8 yet again and actually get into the Blademaster build to get our GB8 build. So with that being said, let's get right into it. So we're flipping all our strides as usual. And this is where I will mention, guys, if you haven't checked out my 500 subscriber contest, go check that out. It should be in the past one of my videos, but you definitely don't want to miss out the chance to get free stuff. So yeah, just wanted you guys to know about that. But starting off with our grade 3s, we do run 7 grade 3s, and this is the Blaze deck. So we run Dragonic Blademaster Cohen. It is the new Dragonic Blademaster from GB8. It has 3 skills. So the first skill is Blaze. Blaze is the Kagero keyword for those of you that didn't know. And Blaze activates whenever any of your units would attack. If you have more rearguards than your opponent, then your Vanguard becomes blazing. And once it's put into the blazing state, it can't activate Blaze over and over again. So if you have any effects that say when this card becomes blazing, then do it right when your first attack happens, that you have more rear guards than them. So first skill is Blaze. Second skill is a on stride skill that says when you stride, you can counterblast 1 and kill one of your opponent's rear guards, and then you choose a unit with the Blaze ability and it gets plus 3000 power. Really solid effect. Helps you clear the board faster for Ziegenberg, our new card. And then also it's Generation Break 2, which is pretty good. I remember at first when it was revealed, we thought that it was add any Blaze card from the drop zone to your hand, which would have been amazingly OP, but this skill is like pretty good as well. At the end of each turn, if your opponent has no rear guards, you can choose a grade 3 with the Blaze ability from your drop zone and put into your hand. So basically, since all the grade 3s that we run in this deck are only Blaze cards, you can add any Blaze grade 3 from your drop zone to your hand, as long as at the end of either turn you have 0 rear guards or your opponent has 0 rear guards. Meaning that if we just had our turn and we clear their board, you can add a grade 3 to your hand at the end of the turn, as long as you're Generation Break 2, which you always should be in this deck. As long as you use stride at least once. And then as well, if your opponent is playing something like Pale Moon, Grand Blue, and they don't leave a rear guard on the field, you can also at the end of their turn add a grade 3 to your hand. So it gives you good PG fodder and like free stride basically. Really, really good. Next we have 3 Wyvern Strike Jargo. It has 3 abilities as well. The first ability would be Blaze. The second ability is Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1. When it's placed on the Vanguard or rearguard circle, you can choose one of your opponent's rearguards in the same column as it and retire it. So really good. It gives us more retire power. And then its Generation Break 1 is Vanguard or rearguard circle. When your Vanguard's blazing, then this unit gets plus 2000 power for each open back row slot in your opponent's field. So basically it becomes a solid rearguard as well, because most of the time you're going to have your entire opponent's field cleared, and so when your opponent's entire field is cleared, they have 3 open spots in the back row, so it gets 6k and it becomes a 17k attacker. Very good. So we do run 4 10ks. So this build was based off of a Japanese build that topped recently, and they run 4 10k vanillas because when you use it with Nadel, then it becomes a 21k column, so it becomes really good. Just makes really solid numbers. Also in the early game, it can protect you from some foolishness, rushing and stuff like that. Then we have 4 Dragonic Neo Flame, also prevents you from early game rush and blasters and stuff like that. Or it doesn't really prevent them, but it allows you to punish them. So Neo Flame, what it does is when it's placed on the rearguard circle, for that turn, it gains an ability that says when your opponent's rearguard in the same column is put into the drop zone, you can counterboss 1 and kill the rest of the cards in that column. So what that means is, let's say your opponent has a Blaster Blade boosted by a Bart Goal or a Lu column, and then you can play Neo Flame in the same column that lines up with it, and then when you attack into their Lu, then you, if they let their Lu go to the drop zone, you can counterboss 1 and destroy the Bart Goal as well. So it punishes them for playing columns in the early game. Then we have 4 Dragonite Mabudi. It has 2 abilities as well. The first one is Blaze. The second one is Generation Break 2. Counterboss 1 when this unit attacks a Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard with Blademaster in its name and it's blazing, then you can counterboss 1 and it draw a card, and this unit gets plus 2,000 power for each of your opponent's open rearguard circles. So if your opponent has a full clear board, then you should be giving this card plus 10k. So also a very solid attacker. So we run 2 Lava Flow Dragons just because we're mostly free striding most of the time after the very first stride. So we don't really need as many stride fodder, but we do still need to run it because getting it off of Conroe in the early game to ensure that we get Cohen is amazingly consistent. So we have 2 of those in there for that. Then we have 4 Protect Orb, our Flip PG, Counterblaster Precious to us, nothing more to say than that. Then we have 4 Dragon Knight Nadel. This card is really, really solid card. It has 2 abilities as well. The first one is Blaze. The second one is when your opponent's rearguard is put into the drop zone due to an effect from one of your cards. If you have a Vanguard with Blademaster in its name, or Dragonic Blademaster specifically in its name, then this unit gets, when your Vanguard becomes blazing, countercharge 1, and it gets plus 4,000 power. So, common misconceptions about this card is you always have to destroy your rearguard on the turn that you want to use or gain the ability. Because some people will just say, like, your opponent has a clear board. If you didn't destroy a rearguard that turn, you cannot countercharge 1 and give it plus 4k. The first skill triggers the second one, or the first one gives you the ability to use the second one. Also, we run 4 of this card because, like I just said, counterblasts are precious to us. So its essential is also 11k for free in case we don't have an attacker. So pretty good. Then we run 4 Lizard Soldier Belog. So what Belog does is when it's placed on the Guardian Circle, choose one of your Vanguards, and until the end of the turn, that unit gets ability that says at the end of the battle that this unit was attacked. If the attack did not hit, you can choose one of your opponent's rested rearguards and retire it. So basically, whenever your opponent is attacking the Vanguard only, you can guard with this, and then at the end of the battle, choose one of your opponent's rested units and retire it. Really solid card. Then we have 1 Lizard Soldier Conroe, back from the grave, from when he was banned forever. So this card is what makes the consistency so good in this deck, because depending on what you need in your opening hand, you can counterboss 1 and retire it and get a Lava Flow to ensure that you can get Cohen. Let's say you only have a Jargo in your hand, you can counterboss 1 with Conroe to get Lava Flow and ensure Cohen. Or you can get a PG, or you can get a Nadel. It just depends on what you're up against and what you're dealing with. So really good card. Then we run 8 crit, 4 Blue Age Draco Kid, and 4 Dragon Knight Janet. Janet is the crit trigger that goes into the soul when a Dragonic Blademaster Vanguard attacks, and then you draw a card and your Vanguard gets plus 5,000 power. So then we also run 4 draw triggers. We run 4 Gatling Claw Dragon. Gatling Claw Dragon says counterboss 1 and move to the soul and then kill one of your opponent's grade 0s. So if you get this in the early game, you can kill their starter if their starter is extra important to them. Then we have 4 positive Draco Kid, the new heal trigger from the Fighters Collection set. When this card is discarded to make a Vanguard Dragon, then you can Soul Blast 1 if the number of face-up cards in your damage zone is only 1 or less. Then you can Soul Blast 1 and Countercharge 1. We mostly never use that because our Countercharge is never really that low, or our amount of Counterblast open is never really that low. But we only use it because it's cool looking, pretty much. And in the case that we do use it once upon a time. Moving on to our Stride Zone, we have 4 Flare Arm Ziegenberg. So Ziegenberg is an amazing card, like so good. It has 3 abilities. So the first one is Blaze. The second one says Soul Blast 1 and flip a card with the same name as this unit. So you flip another Ziegenberg and then you can retire one of your opponent's units, which you don't really need to do most of the time, but sometimes you will need to do it. Then it's Generation Break 3 is what makes it so good. It says at the end of the battle that this unit attacked a Vanguard. If it is blazing, if your Vanguard's blazing and your Generation Break 3, then what you can do is you can Counterblast 1 and you choose the same number of cards from your hand as the number of your opponent's rear guards and retire them. Which means what? If your opponent has no rear guards, you don't discard any cards, and then it restands and it gets -2 drive checks. So most of the time you're just attacking with 4 free drive checks with a restanding Vanguard, and you don't have to get rid of anything to do it except for a Counterblast, which most of the time is refueled by either Nadel or your PG. There are many ways to fuel a Counterblast 1 in this deck. So then we have 3 Dragonic Blademaster Titan. We really never use it, but it's just here for, I guess, a just in case scenario. It does have 2 abilities. The first one is Blaze, and the second one is Generation Break 2, Counterblast 1, and choose any card from your G-Zone and turn it face up. Then you get to choose up to the same number of your opponent's rear guards as the number of face-up Titans in your G-Zone, retire them, and then this unit gets an ability that says when this unit's blazing, it gains a critical. So pretty good. Allows you to wipe a little of your opponent's board and give them some critical pressure. So then for our ideal first stride, we use Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Vortex Dragon. So what Vortex Desire, not Vortex Dragon, but what Vortex Desire does is when you attack a Vanguard, you can flip any card in your G-Zone, which usually is Sabreeze, for the first turn. Sabreeze or Titan, it depends on what kind of deck you're against. But if you don't expect to use Titan, flip Sabreeze. If you do expect to use Titan, flip Titan. So when this unit attacks a Vanguard, you flip, and then into the end of the battle, it gets an on-hit ability. And when the unit hits, you can choose up to 2 of your opponent's grade 2 or less. You choose 1 of your opponent's grade 2 or less for each Flame Dragon card on your Vanguard circle. So that counts the Flame Dragon that is Vortex Desire and your Heart card, which will most likely be Cohen. So if you're on Cohen, you sack 2, but if you're on Jargo, you only sack 1 because it's a Winged Dragon. So be aware of that. Then we run 2 of our lovely GB8. Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Blazing Burst Dragon. So what Blazing Burst does is when it attacks a Vanguard, you retire your opponent's whole board, all your rear guards get plus 10,000 power, and then if the number of units that were retired are 3 or more, this unit gets plus 10,000 power and a critical. So this card's pretty good for putting some extreme pressure on your opponent, finishing them off. If it doesn't finish them off, that's why you run 2. So very good. Board wipe 2 turns in a row is just devastating to a lot of decks. So really good. Then we run 1 Sabreeze for shenanigans that our opponent might try to play on us. And then we run, for G-Guardians, we run 5. So instead of like the other GB8 videos where I ran 2 of the Unflip and then 3 of another G-Guardian, we actually ran 3 of Denial Griffin here because it's really, really important that you like mess with your opponent and you disrupt them. So basically Denial Griffin says Counterblast 1. When it's placed on the Guardian Circle, you can choose whatever rear guard is attacking and retire it. So it gets over a lot of things. Wise Man Loop, all these popular decks. Like if you have to guard like some extreme number, like 52 or 40 or something, is like not really unheard of nowadays. So you can just denial Griffin it, and you don't have to worry about guarding the rest of the attack at all, because the card's gone and it's no longer attacking. Then we have one Supreme Heavenly Emperor Dragon Advanced Guard Dragon. This is the new Fighters Collection G Guardian. So this G Guardian says to Soul Blast 1 and flip a G Guard when it's placed on guard circle. And you can choose one of your opponent's rested rear guards that are grade 1 or less and retire it. Now, while I wish this card didn't retire only rested grade 1s or less, it's still a very, very solid card. It can kill Negro Bone and Night Rose before it can get off. It can kill Flogel and Blasters before it can get off, so it can kill a lot of good things. And then we have our other new G-Guard from GBT11 that is finally what Kagero people have been asking for the longest, is a G-Guard that is just straight up like gives power to itself, gives shield amount. So when this unit is placed on Guardian Circle during the battle that your unit or your Vanguard was attacked by opponent's Vanguard, that's the only unfortunate part about it, that it only applies to your opponent's Vanguard attacking you. But when it's placed on the Guarded Circle during the battle that your Vanguard was attacked by your opponent's Vanguard, you can counterblast 1, and this unit gets plus 10,000 shield for every open rearguard circle that your opponent has. So if they only have 2 open rearguard circles, it gains 20k shield. That's amazing. If they have an open rearguard, that's like instantly no pass, unless your opponent is like Gurgwitch Stride or something like that. But yeah, this card can guard up to like 76k or something like that, which is pretty ridiculous if you ask me. But let's get right into the matches. Let's open up area right here. Again, it would be really cool to be able to go right from the test mode in area back to the main menu. Wink wink, creators of Cardfight area. Listen to my pleas. But we are going to get right into game 1. And it looks like game 1, we are going to be against Pale Moon. So I was just discussing this. This is a really good matchup for this deck. It used to be like an okay matchup, but now that we have Ziegenberg, it's just completely overpowering matchup for us against them, because we finally have something to punish them when they don't have a board. So he rides grade 1 and calls Brassy Bunny in front of his starter. He does check a heal trigger, which allows him to get an attack through on me, because originally I was going to guard it. So we do get a Jargo, because we didn't have a grade 3, which is solid, because we're able to use Conroe to search Lava Flow, and then reveal Jargo for Lava Flow and get Cohen and discard a card. So instantly, just like that, we have a way to stride and a grade 3. Unfortunately, because we use the counterboss for Conroe, we cannot punish him with Neoflame. But we do check a heal, so that is fortunate. And then he rides Lapin and attacks our Vanguard. We don't want to use the G-Guard, so we no-guard it. And then he attacks our rear guard, because if he doesn't check a trigger, he wouldn't have passed on our Vanguard, and I guess he didn't want to take that chance. So then we just ride a grade 3 and we attack him. We check a critical trigger and a Neoflame. And then he rides to grade 3. And then he's going to look at the top 2 cards of the deck with Harry's skill. Puts 1 into the soul and puts 1 on the bottom of his deck. And then he actually has a really, really defensive hand, which I didn't think he had all this from the start. But now I understand how some things happened later in the game that did, because he had 2 heal triggers and 2 PGs from the start. But he does have to use 2 cards to discard to stride, so we were pretty pleased with that. He starts off with using Janet, where he counterboss 1, puts a rear guard into soul, which he puts in Brassy Bunny, and then he uses the skill of Cutie Paratrooper to soul charge one and call out Lapin. And then when Lapin calls out, he's going to call Brassy Bunny back out from its own skill. So he's applying all the powers to his rear guards. And then he attacks my Vanguard for 28, which I take, and it's a draw trigger, so I put all effects on my Vanguard. And then I asked him if he soul charged for Lapin because it is mandatory, so he does have to soul charge for that. And if he hadn't soul charged, he would have checked the stand trigger, which is even more so why it's crucial that you use mandatory effects. But then he didn't notice that he soul charged Mirrorland, like the stand trigger that allows you to switch out itself with any card in your deck and put it back to the deck when it's soul charged. So I let him know that he did soul charge Mirrorland, and then he said he wanted to use a skill, which is completely fine with us. If it was real life, they would be using it anyways because they would see it as they held it in their hand. So he just triple drive, and he forgot to shuffle. So then he puts his cards back, and then he does triple drive again. I take 1 damage, and then he can't attack us with his Brassy Bunny column. So that leaves us at 3 damage, which puts us at a pretty good spot, honestly. And then he's using the skill of his starter to bounce Lapin to hand, and then when he bounces Lapin to hand, he actually counterbusted 1 and added a grade 3 to his hand, but I didn't even notice that skill was GB2 until now, so he wasn't supposed to do that, but I guess it's fine. He does have a huge disadvantage against us, so why not let him have 1 misplay that helps him? Alright, so we attack his Vanguard with Vortex Desire using the skill to flip Sabreeze. And then we actually decide to flip Titan in case we do use it later in the game. And then he PGs this one with a Lovely Companion. And then I check 3 cards. One of them is a heal trigger. So we now have 2 heal triggers in our hand and 2 PGs, which is beautiful. We do attack 15 though to his Vanguard, and he checks the heal trigger, instantly healing off the damage I just did to him, which I guess is fine because it was a 15k attack, so at least we got something out of him for it. So he stands and draws. Then he PGs, or sorry, not PGs, he discards Masquerade Bunny to stride into Lunatic Dragon, so I'm guessing he's going for the cheese here, because he went into a stride that gains +1 critical, and then he would try to attack me and check a critical and end the game. So he uses the stride skill to flip a Lunatic, and then he uses Harry's skill to Soul Blast 1, call a card with the Magi ability, and then Cutie Paratrooper skill, Soul Charge, and call out Lapin. They both get 2k, and then Lapin in specific gets +5k. And then the card that he soul charged, I guess, was the Mirrorland girl. So he gets to switch it out with any card that he wants in his deck. He decides to switch it out for Mass Magician Harry. And then right here he's using his starter. At the beginning of the main phase, it has an ability that says you can counter boss 1, soul charge 1, and call it to rear guard, and it gets plus 2000 power. So therefore it gets plus 4 if you include the 2k from Lunatech. He also plays a Lapin from his hand. He attacks my Vanguard for 25 and soul charges 1. And he soul charges Lapin. Or I guess he soul charged the Mirrorland girl and I didn't see it. That's weird. Okay. But he adds a misdirection into his soul. I take it and it's a Bellog, which is sad because I like it better when Bellogs are in my hand than in the damage zone, but it is what it is. So we PG. And we end up dropping a Mibooty. He does check a stand trigger, standing one of his rear guards and giving power to the other Lapin. And then he checks a heal and goes down in damage. So I was pretty like, oh my gosh at this point, because like, just die. You ever had that person that you're playing and they refuse to be put down? Like some kind of animal? That's how I feel. But then he keeps soul charging this stand. It's like 4 times in a row now. But he uses the stand ability to put Lovely Companion into the soul. I do guard the attack for 10k because it's not actually 21, it's actually 16 because the card that he originally soul charged was the stand, so he doesn't get the power from Lapin skill. So he's kind of bossing 1, adding a grade 3 to his hand, and then he left this Lapin and his starter to die, so I guess he doesn't really care about them. But anyways, we draw for our turn and we stride into Ziegenberg. So we counter boss 1 with our on-stride ability and kill, and then we use Ziegenberg's skill to soul blast 1 and flip to kill his starter. So he retires that, and then we don't have much else that we can do, so we just decide to attack his Vanguard. So he does no guard it. Our first check is a critical. We went to crit to Vanguard, power to our rear guard. He checks a critical trigger as well, puts it on his Vanguard. So then we use the skill of Ziegenberg to counter boss 1 and restand it for nothing because he has no rear guards. And then he G-guards this attack with Wandering Dragon. So he soul charges 1 and then chooses a card from his soul and puts it on the guard circle. I think he was under the impression that he could guard with PG with Lovely Companion this way, but he cannot, because Lovely Companion says when it's placed on guard circle from hand, which I did mention to him. So I had to explain to him here that it's from guard circle to hand. And so he's choosing to guard with the G guard, still calling out the PG from it, I guess for the end of the battle skill or whatnot. And then he guards with 2 10Ks as well. So what he does is he goes 26, 36, 46. So that's like a super no pass because I only get one drive check. So then we check a critical. I would have given it to Neoflame, but it wouldn't hit because he also checked a trigger this turn. So we gave it to Hunger Hell Dragon. He guards with a 5, and we are finally working on wearing him down inch by inch. We do use the GB2 of Blademaster to add the Jargo from the drop zone back to our hand. So then he goes into Parallel Megatrick Fairfield. And then he uses the skill of Harry to call out Cutie, Soul Charge 1, and call it out to the board. And the unit call gets plus 5,000 power, so Laughing gets plus 5,000. Vanguard skill, Counterblast 2, and choose a card from his Soul and Drop Zone. Oh. Yeah, so he chooses a card from his Soul and Drop Zone, and then puts them into the bottom of his deck. And then he chooses a card from his Soul, calls it out to Rearguard, and that unit gets plus 10,000 in the crit. It also gets another activation ability that says Soul Blast 2. Until the end of the turn, this unit gets plus 5,000 power, and it cannot be chosen by card effects. In my opinion, he should have used that because he's against Kagero, but he also wanted to check a stand trigger, it seems, and stand it up. But if he used that skill, since it says cannot be targeted by card effects, triggers also count as card effects. So you would not be able to restand the card if it said cannot be affected by card effects. So then he attacks with 26 without using the skill. Even more of a sign that he's planning on checking a stand trigger to restand it. So like the Kagero player that I am, we decide to interrupt his play by G-guarding. And then we go into Denial Griffin and Counterblast 1 to kill it. And then his Rearguard Lapin, boosted by the Cutie Paratrooper, attacks for 26. The card that he soul charges was Mischievous Girl of Nightmare Land. So technically it should have been like 23, but I end up like using a Vanguard Dragon anyways. I could have used an Griffin, but I didn't want to counter blast, and then I also wanted to GB8 next turn. So I threw down Conroe and it so that I could kill both. And then he attacks Vanguard and IPG, and I know that I can like rest assured knowing that this is the final attack of this turn. See, if I hadn't retired his rear guards, it would not have been the final attack of this turn, and it would have taken more guard out of our hand, which we did not want, obviously. So we stride with Jargo into Blazing Burst Dragon. So we play Nadel, and the unfortunate thing is I should have used the stride skill, I guess, because I was thinking that Blazing Burst, when it attacks, it would become blazing before it attacks, technically, because it's at the beginning of each attack. So you wouldn't get Nadel's skill because you can't reactivate blazing. So all of our rear guards get plus 10k. And then he G-guards. And then he G-Guards into Chainsaw Mega Trick Furnival, which I thought, hey, he was probably going to go into a better G-Guardian than that for a 43,000 attack, but I guess not. The card that he soul charges is a stand trigger, so he doesn't even get the plus 5,000 from Furnival. And then he guards with 2 of the Mischievous Girl stand trigger. So right now that is 26, 36, 46, 1 to pass. And then 2 to pass. He thought it was 3 because he thought his G-Guard got plus 5,000 power. I let him know that it did not get plus 5,000 power, and I told him that was 2 to pass. And then he said that that was okay with him. So I proceeded to do my dry checks. And I could have believed in the ability to pass, but there's really like no purpose. I'd rather just, you know, do it this way. So we do check a draw trigger, a heal trigger, and a crit, which is pretty good. Pretty lucky actually. So we see another Furnival from him. He checks the top 3. And then he puts a card into the soul, which is Dagger Magician Eddie. Then we attack ya boy for 47k. And then he was holding a PG that entire time, so that's fine. We just hope that the last card in his hand isn't really a stride fodder. However, I did forget that he could do this, soul charge and bring a card out. And then at the end of the turn, when it goes back to his soul, he can counterboss 1 and add a grade 3 from his soul to his hand. So pretty solid combo. I didn't even know that Pale Moon could do that. No one's ever done it against me before. But he strides with 6 cards in his deck. Or it might not be 6 cards in his deck for real, but because like I said, the area recordings don't accurately depict what's going on with the decks. So he goes into Fairfield again, even though he has no counterblast. Then he soul blasts and calls out Cutie Paratrooper. Cutie Paratrooper calls out Lappin, as he's been doing all game. So pretty expected of him. And then I guess this is the point where he realizes that he didn't have any open counterblasts, and he would rather use something else. So he actually switched his stride on me, which I could have told him no, but he's not going to win anyways at this point, so it's like I just let him do whatever final play he wants to do. So yeah, he ends up going into Mephisto here, using Mephisto's skill. And then he calls a card for every stride with Magia, which is pretty much no cards. Furnival, basically. Yeah, Furnival's the only card with Magia, so he can call 1 from the soul if he wishes. And he calls the Dagger Magician Eddie. And he actually calls 2 cards from his soul. I don't know what was going on with me in this final turn. I guess I just wasn't paying attention because I already like accepted the game as game over for him, that is. But yeah, he attacks me for 21. I just take it because I have my free pity damage to take, and then I guard his Vanguard for a 3 to pass, knowing that he didn't have 3 triggers left in his deck to check. And then also knowing that I could just denial Griffin anything that he puts on the rear guard circle. So he does get a stand trigger, which was kind of unexpected. I didn't know his ratio, so I thought that that would be a crit. But all the same, we just use a draw trigger to guard it, and then we use our heal trigger to G-guard into denial Griffin and kill his Lapin. So he puts his card into the soul at the end of his turn, and then we stride into Blazing Burst Dragon. This time we counter boss 1 and make sure that we kill the Mischievous Girl, and then we play a rear guard. This time, since Blazing, everything gets 10k. In the case of Nadell, it gets 14k and unflips 1 for us. So we attack him for 43. He PGs. And then check a PG, a crit, which we put all on Hunger Hell. Then we attack him for 19. And then we attack him for 46 with a crit. So yeah, he only has 1 card left in his deck anyways, so we say GG, and that was it for that game. Now we are opening up area for our second playtest game. Man, I wish the area playtest kept at a consistent speed, because it always seems like they start off fast and then they slow down, like no matter how fast you put the replay at. It's kind of annoying, to be honest. But loading the replay, Kagero GB8 2. Let's try putting it at 4 speed this time. So we played actually this like really weird Nova Grappler deck, where it seems like some kind of old Nova Grappler deck. At first I thought it was a Nova Grappler rush deck, so I got really like paranoid and scared, and I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna let this happen. So I just started rushing him like really hard. So I read Bellog, and then I pass turn. He rides Claydol Mechanic and calls his Battle Razor back, and then he plays Death Army Guy and a PG. So that's what made me think that this was a rush deck, and I was like, oh crap. So then I no guard its Vanguard attack, he checks the heal. Then he puts back his Battle Razor and shuffles. Then we use Conroe to grab a Lava Fluid and make sure that we have a Stride Fodder. And then we attack for 10. He guards, then we attack for 10. And he physically cannot guard. So he no guards, we check a crit. We put crit power to the Vanguard. And then we attack him. So at this point we're just thinking about out-rushing him, because we didn't know what kind of a deck it was, and better safe than sorry. So 13 attacks our Vanguard, we no guard, or sorry, we block it with a 10. Then Brutal Jack attacks our Vanguard and we no guard. He does hit a stand trigger, allowing him to attack me 1 more time, which I wasn't really fond of, but you know, meh. So then we attack for 10, attack for 11. This is going to be 2 to pass. We check a critical, put it on our rear guard, and then our opponent checks the heal and tries to heal, but they were actually not supposed to heal, so I corrected them on it. So even though he has a grade 3 in his hand, like, oh, so I guess I just let him ride and stuff. But we do G-guard, and we denial Griffin and kill his rear guard. So I guess he doesn't know what denial Griffin is, so maybe he's like an old player or something like that. I thought it was just like a new interesting deck that I was running into, but I end up guarding with 2 cards and killing Death Metal Droid just so that I can ensure that a Kaiser won't get any extra attacks on me. So I PG using a PG. And then he checks 2 cards, puts Battle Razor to the bottom, and then we stride into Ziegenberg. Then we Soul Blast 1 and flip a Ziegenberg to become GB3, and we retire his PG. And then we attack his Vanguard. He no guards. We check a heal trigger, a draw trigger, and then he actually 6 damage heals, which doesn't really matter, but you know, Ziegenberg attacks again, and then he takes it, and that is game for that one. So these Kagero matches are going pretty quick. People hate playing against Kagero. It's just like honestly how for my Genesis playthrough, I couldn't get people to play against Fenrir because every time they would see the Fenrir starter, they would assume that it was the Wise Man loop and they would just quit. So I actually had to run a different starter than I was intending to just because I couldn't get people to play matches. So Kagero GB8 3. So we're playing against Luard now. Luard Diablo, it looks like. So then we go first, we ride Nadell, and then we move our card back. He tries to rush us, and we no guard his Vanguard attack and check a heal and say no to his rush. Then we use Conroe to get Nadell, since we're already pretty set up in our hand as far as attackers and stuff. So then we place these and we start going ham on them. So yeah, we attacked for 9, and I was asking if he was there, and he went somewhere for a second, I guess, without telling me. So then he came back and took the damage. Then we attacked for 10, and then we attacked for 17, which makes a real number on his grade 1, unfortunately for him. So he wasn't even going to think about guarding that, and then he rides a 7k grade 2, so I was like, uh-oh, here comes the punishment. But he attacks my rear guard, and because of that he's not able to attack my Vanguard at all. Just like last game, we ride to grade 3 and just attack, because that's all we really need to do. And then we drive check 2, we get a critical trigger. And then he doesn't actually ride the Blaster Dart that's in his hand, I guess because he wouldn't be able to stride, and he determined that he would just get screwed. So what we did is we drew, and since we couldn't Sabreeze, we just decided to attack him again, which he has to guard us for literally 2 10Ks for 2 to pass. So 1 10K is just a hit, and it's not enough anyways. So then he just no guards this one, and I was like, no guard? Like, don't you have cards in your hand to guard with? But I didn't know what he had in his hand at the time. And then he said no point, so I'm guessing he just gave up. So yeah, but I mean, I guess to be fair and honest, like if the match had continued the way that it was going, with as much pressure that I had gotten off on him in the early game, and he hadn't gotten off enough against me in the early game, it would have been a really rough recovery for him, especially playing Luard, or Shadow Pilot in general, because I can just like screw every single one of his retires during his turn. But yeah, that has been the Kagero GB8 video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like, comment, subscribe, and share the video with your friends. Comment down below, let me know what you like, what you'd like to see more of. Be sure to check out the 500 subscriber video as that closes Sunday. But I think that's all I had to say. Thank you guys for tuning in. This has been Josh from Cardfight Empire, and I will see you guys tomorrow.